A child is not supposed to become old inside before his body has finished growing. A child is supposed to laugh without thinking too much. A child is supposed to run without wondering if his footsteps are too loud. A child is supposed to make mistakes and still feel loved. But in the house of other people, childhood did not come to me gently. It came with instructions. It came with warnings. It came with rules that changed depending on the mood of the adults. It came with hands that helped in public, but hurt in private. And beside me, there was my brother's anger. His anger was like fire. It reminded me that we had not only lost a father, we had lost peace. In the previous days of my life, I had seen how deeply my brother carried our pain. He did not speak about our father with sadness. He spoke about him with judgment. To him, our father was not a mystery anymore. He was the man who left, the man who failed, the man who did not deserve to return. I understood my brother. I understood his anger because I carried the same wound. But my pain was quieter. My brother became hard on the outside. I became silent on the inside. That silence changed me. Slowly, I began to grow too early, not in my body, in my heart. I learned to wake up before anyone called me. I learned to look around and notice what needed to be done. I learned to move quickly before someone accused me of being lazy. I learned to answer softly. I learned to keep my face calm, even when my chest was full of pain. I learned to hide my tears. I learned to be careful with every word. Other children learned games. I learned moods. Other children learned songs. I learned footsteps. Other children learned how to ask for what they wanted. I learned how to need less. That was the first sign that childhood was leaving me. I began to reduce myself. I reduced my questions. I reduced my complaints. I reduced my laughter. I reduced my dreams when I spoke to people who might laugh at them. I reduced my pain so nobody would call me ungrateful. I reduced my presence so no one would feel I was taking too much space. A child is supposed to grow bigger with time, but I was learning how to become smaller. And strangely, people praised me for it. They said I was respectful. They said I was mature. They said I understood life. They said I was well behaved, but they did not know the truth. Some children are quiet because they are peaceful. Others are quiet because they are afraid. Some children are obedient because they understand. Others are obedient because they have learned that one mistake can bring humiliation. I was becoming the second kind. I was not mature because life had taught me gently. I was mature because life did not give me permission to remain a child. In that house, I learned that being useful made life easier. When I worked hard, fewer harsh words came. When I anticipated what adults wanted, the day became lighter. When I stayed silent, trouble sometimes passed over me, so I worked. I worked with my hands. I worked with my face, keeping it calm. I worked with my voice, keeping it respectful. I worked with my heart, forcing it not to react. Every day became training. Training in silence, training in endurance, training in fear, training in becoming older than my age. Sometimes I watched other children playing outside. They shouted. They laughed. They ran without thinking about who might be angry. One child would fall, cry for a moment, then stand up and laugh again. I watched them from a distance. I wanted to join them, but something inside me could not fully enter their joy. They looked light. I felt heavy. They looked free. I felt watched. They looked like children. I felt like someone who had already lived too many years. That was one of the painful things about growing too early. You can stand among children and still feel far away from them. Your body is young, but your heart is tired. Your face may look normal, but your thoughts are already full of adult worries. You think about tomorrow. You think about food. You think about money. You think about your mother's tiredness. You think about your brother's anger. You think about the people who help you but make you feel small. And above all, you think about the father who is not there. My father's absence was still the hidden reason behind everything. Because he was not there, my mother carried too much. Because he was not there, we depended on other people. Because he was not there, my brother became angry. Because he was not there, I became careful. Because he was not there, I had to learn strength before I learned peace. And the more I grew too early, the more I blamed him. I blamed him not only for leaving, I blamed him for the childhood I was losing. I blamed him for every moment when I had to act strong while feeling broken. I blamed him for every time I had to smile and say I was fine. That word followed me everywhere. Fine. When someone asked how I was, I said I was fine. When my mother wanted to believe I was okay, I said I was fine. When adults looked at me quickly and asked if everything was good, I said I was fine. But I was not fine. I was learning how to survive. There is a difference. Survival can look like strength from the outside, but inside, it can feel like loneliness. I carried many things quietly: my father's absence, my mother's tiredness, my brother's anger, the house of other people, the hands that hurt, the question that had no answer, the need to be grateful, the fear of being a burden, the dream of belonging, and the shame of still wanting my father. I carried all of it. And because I carried it quietly, many people thought I was fine, but I was only becoming good at hiding the truth. At night, when the house became quiet, I sometimes allowed myself to feel what I had buried during the day. The silence of the night was different. No one was calling my name. No one was giving orders. No one was watching my face. No one was reminding me to be thankful. For a few hours, I belonged to myself. But even in that silence, my thoughts returned to him, my father, the man whose name I knew, the man whose face was still far from me, the man whose absence had followed me into every room. I wondered where he was. I wondered if he ever thought of us. I wondered if he knew what his absence had done. Did he know that his children were growing too early? Did he know that my brother's anger was becoming a wall? Did he know that my silence was becoming a hiding place? Did he know that I was learning to live without asking for comfort? I did not know. And because I did not know, my imagination filled the empty space. Some days I imagined he was careless. Some days I imagined he had forgotten us. Some days I imagined he was suffering too. Some days I imagined he wanted to return, but did not know how. But no imagination changed the truth. He was not there. And because he was not there, I had to become strong in ways that made me sad. My brother saw life differently. He did not want hope. He wanted justice. He did not want explanations. He wanted consequences. He had already decided that if our father ever returned, he would not welcome him. Sometimes I admired him for that. His anger looked strong. His certainty looked powerful, but other times I saw the pain behind it. He was not angry because he did not care. He was angry because he had cared too much. He was angry because the love that should have gone to a father had nowhere safe to go. So it became fire. I understood him. But I was not exactly like him. Even while I blamed my father, a small part of me still wondered what would happen if he returned. I hated that part of myself. It made me feel weak. It made me feel disloyal to our pain. But it was there. Hidden under the anger, there was still a child who wanted to know his father. A child who wanted to hear him say, "I am sorry." A child who wanted to be chosen, even late. That hidden hope was dangerous. It could hurt me again. So I tried to bury it. I worked harder. I spoke less. I dreamed quietly. And slowly, another dream began to form in me. Not a clear dream yet, not a complete plan, just a feeling. One day I would build something of my own. One day I would stand in a place where no one could make me feel like an unwanted guest. One day I would not live by permission. One day I would create something strong enough to prove that I was more than the child whose father left. At first, that dream was not beautiful. It was born from pain. Part of me wanted dignity. Part of me wanted freedom. Part of me wanted the people who hurt me to see that I had survived. And part of me wanted my father to know that his absence had not destroyed me. Even my dreams were speaking to him. Even my future was arguing with his absence. I did not understand that then. I did not know that one day the same father I blamed would return. I did not know that one day he would stand before us with regret in his eyes. I did not know that one day he would help me build the very dream that began in my pain. I did not know that the absent father would later become my teacher, my guide, my helper, my cornerstone. At that time, such a thing would have sounded impossible. How could the man who made me grow too early teach me wisdom? How could the man who left become the man who stayed? How could the man I blamed become the man I loved? Those answers belonged to the future. The present was still heavy. The present was still the house of other people. The present was still my brother's anger. The present was still my mother's tiredness. The present was still the question I carried in silence. Where was my father? And while that question remained unanswered, I kept growing. Too early, too quietly, too carefully. I became responsible before I was ready. I became watchful before I understood danger. I became strong before I learned how to rest. I became mature before I had fully been a child. But even in that early maturity, something inside me refused to die. A small hope, not the innocent hope I once had, not the soft hope of a child waiting at the door. This hope was harder. It had been through pain. It had seen false kindness. It had felt humiliation. It had heard my brother's anger. It had learned not to trust every promise. But it still believed life could become more than suffering. It still believed I could rise. It still believed that one day my story would not end in abandonment. That hope stayed with me, quietly, like a small light hidden under ashes. And as season 1 of my life continued, I did not know that this small light would one day guide me toward forgiveness. I did not know that the child who grew too early would one day become a man strong enough to forgive. I did not know that forgiveness would not erase the pain, but would stop the pain from ruling my future. For now I was still young, still wounded, still under another person's roof, still carrying my brother's anger beside my own silence, still missing a father I tried to hate, still becoming older than my years. That is what fatherlessness did to me. It did not only take a man from the house. It took time from my childhood. It made me careful when I should have been carefree. It made me silent when I should have been loud with joy. It made me strong before I knew what strength truly meant. And that is how I grew. Not slowly, like a child protected by love, but quickly, painfully, too early.